Hi, hello, and welcome back to Bioenergetics with me, Devaraj. I wanted to just kind of summarize, what I see, because working a lot with trauma and the body and conditioning, traumatic conditioning, this kind of thing, and holding patterns, is I like to keep up to date with what's going on in the world of psychology or trauma treatment. And I can see nowadays, it's like two kind of basic, broad approaches that have developed. The first approach is most definitely on the up these days, and that is essentially putting the traumatized person in an environment where they feel increasingly safe. It's basically working at a sort of heart-mind level, as I would call it. And because when we've been traumatized, we tend to be on the alert so much, from our autonomic nervous system, our fight and flight reflex, the sympathetic nervous system tends to be highly active. By putting someone into a much more relaxing and gentle, peaceful, heart-centered environment. So their body can start to relax, their nervous system can start to relax, and they can start to speak about, what happened to them. They can go in their mind into the areas of their psyche that they've been very scared of going into in the past because now they feel safe. So this principle of trauma therapy has become a backbone of schools of thought like polyvagal theory, where the idea of the ventral vagus nerve, and when it's active, that we feel safe and relaxed, and we can go into new experiences that previously would have been highly triggering and potentially re-traumatizing, and actually feel okay in them, and so essentially heal. No longer be, incapable of accessing intimacy and these kind of things because of a traumatic childhood. So this is one approach which has grown up and got a great deal stronger over the last 10, 20 years in my experience. The secondary approach is a little bit more from traditional bioenergetics, which is more around grounding. It's around really recreating a connection between the belly and the soles of the feet, feeling yourself really present on the earth, so that your psyche isn't so controlled and dominated by the traumatic events that have happened. You don't necessarily need to avoid things. You can just have this grounded feeling and move into new situations, breathing and feeling, and it tends to develop a lot more presence in the person. They're much more aware. They've kind of dropped down underneath the thinking mind substantially. We probably never drop down totally out of it, but they drop down substantially beneath the thinking mind. They're feeling the lower part of their body much more, and this creates an innate sense of gradual safety as well, so as a similar kind of effect. So these are the two kind of approaches, and you might, one is kind of like the heart-mind circuit or channel, as I call it, and the other is like the belly to the soles of the feet, basically. And so these are two totally valid approaches to trauma. What's problematic is that proponents of one tend to be quite down on the other. Thus you find lots of very soft, heartful people who really want to support others to heal, and they don't like expressing anger. They're not interested in kind of grounding work, which they see as kind of re-traumatizing and very extreme, And then you have the other camp of people who are into this belly, soles of the feet grounding kind of approach, and they tend to be very judgmental about very heart-centered approach and this kind of thing, and not really giving it much credence, seeing it as very overly feminine, or not really supporting people to be on the earth. And this is unfortunate. There are basic problems with the two approaches, because if you're totally into the heart-mind thing and feeling safe and allowing yourself to be open, of course, you have to exert a lot of control over your environment. You can't just be in the middle of a big city with all sorts of stuff going on. You maybe can't go close to certain people because they trigger huge feelings in you and stuff like this. And so you have to exert a lot of control over your environment. And politically, you'll probably be, hyper into moving the society into a more caring state. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it means that you need to exert a lot of control over your environment. And what's problematic with the more grounding approach, when it's just done on its own, is it can make intimacy very difficult for its exponents. People get into energy, they get into meditation, they get into you know, running and just charging about the place. Their energy's pouring, you know, they can maybe be up 18 hours a day and just filled with energy. But in terms of close human contact and being able to really talk about what's going on inside, often they find it very difficult. So these two approaches are both valid, but they both have weaknesses, and ideally what you want to do, you know, if you want to really recover from the past and have a good life, is to work in both ways, you know, to work on the grounding without judgment and to work on the heart-mind without judgment. That's really, you know, that's the kind of, to me, the most enlightened perspective. Okay, thank you for checking out this video. Feel free to like and subscribe and all that stuff. And of course, I've got a whole website, bioenergetics.org.uk, with my book and courses and all this kind of stuff. Okay, lovely. Bye for now, and speak to you again soon.